Howdy Earthlings, I'm Sarah, and this is one of my things. Today I'm reviewing a hobby, and that hobby is the furry fandom. I've been a furry for over a decade now. I'm 34, and got into furry stuff at 16, I believe, when I got internet and started checking out the furry Reddit, r/furry. Since then, I've gone on to become a YouTuber, and semi-known in the fandom for my series on original species that I do off and on. I'll get into original species stuff a little later. If you don't know me, you might have still seen one of my more popular videos like The Furry Iceberg, the video about Citra, Chimerion, Mochi Raptors, or Atlas. All were videos that did, I think, about 100,000 views. I've met some people who follow me on Blue Sky just to find out later through conversation that I'm the same person who makes these videos that they also like. I've wanted to review hobbies for a while now, and I think now's a good time to starting with the furry fandom. The furry fandom has a pretty clear start date in 1989 with the first exclusively furry convention conference, but started much earlier through a generalized appreciation of anthropomorphic media. For those who don't know, furry is basically a stand-in word or a colloquialism for anthropomorphic, meaning animals that exhibit human-like traits. By the definition that being a furry only requires an appreciation of furry media, that means that we could retroactively say that ancient Egyptians were furries, even though the more formalized fandom is much more recent. In modern days, the idea of the furry fandom is debated. Some say to be a furry, you only need to appreciate furry media and say you're a furry, which is what I go by. If you identify as a furry, you're probably a furry. But for some, they say that you need a fursona, a furry alternate version of yourself or a representation of yourself within the fandom that is done in this furry media style. It doesn't have to be specifically you, but a furry version of you. It can be an idealized form of yourself, more of an abstraction like a character in a video game. Outsiders and newcomers get the idea that because of conventions that to be a furry you need to have a fursuit, which is a handmade costume modeled after a person's fursona. These are very expensive and far from represent the main furry fandom. These cost ranging in the thousands, and the fursuiters you see at conventions actually represent a very small, outgoing minority in the fandom. Most furries can't afford or will never be able to afford a partial fursuit, let alone a full one. For those who can afford them, they also tend to have enough money to go to conventions regularly. So those who have suits go to conventions in order to show them off and hang out with their internet pals from all over. The majority of the furry fandom is actually held online through sites like Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, Discord, Furfinity, Telegram, and a variety of other furry populated sites. Everywhere that there are people, there are furry groups, and we come from a large variety of backgrounds and interests. Furries are probably the most diverse of any hobby group since it's most welcoming to people regardless of your wealth, race, social, and other statuses. A wealthy person will get just as much enjoyment out of the fandom as a poor person would. My participation in the fandom is somewhat minimal, and that's fine. I don't draw art much, unless I need something for my channel, but I hire furry artists frequently and pay them to make stuff for me. And that brings me to one of the coolest features of the furry fandom, the isolated economy. Furries exist in their own sort of economic bubble. Most furries are very passionate about their participation in the fandom. They'll exclusively watch furry content creators even if they don't make furry content, which gives the YouTubers money. The YouTubers buy art from furry artists, and furry artists pay their bills or commission others. Furries of all sorts bring money from their jobs and daily lives and inject it into the furry fandom, making many furry-specific careers possible and sustainable. In my case, as a YouTuber, they support me for free by just watching, but some give me money to make videos or for cool merch that I made. Some pay artists for art of their characters. I buy models from artists to make videos with. I make videos about furries, which gets more furries to watch. Furries are even very opinionated about who gets to profit off of the fandom. Breaking into the furry fandom and making money should be easy on paper. We seem like an easy group to appeal to, but furries are a tight-knit and outspoken community. If you're trying to use furries to make a quick buck, your business won't stay in business very long. Basically, when money enters the furry fandom, it stays in the fandom unless they're using it for bills. Furries come from all sorts of jobs too. I used to work in a factory. I was also a manager for fast food. I know one who's a landlord, many full-time artists and YouTubers, brewers, builders, game designers. Every job there is has furries participating in it. We're kind of inescapable. Of course, not all is good in the furry fandom. Sometimes our overly accepting nature allows bad people to get in, like predators, fascists, racists, and more. And people in the fandom sometimes don't get that tolerating intolerance leads to the death of tolerant spaces. But we're also one of the very few communities that genuinely polices itself. We are frequently ousting people who are bad people. We kick people out of so many conventions for just sucking in general that they had to go and make their own convention just for the people who get kicked out of other conventions. There's of course groomers in the community, but they exist in all communities. But we get a special spotlight shown on us because of the size of the community and our willingness to oust people when they get caught doing bad stuff. So despite us being very proactive in removing problem members, it kind of backfires a bit because it tells everyone, hey, this terrible person was found in the furry fandom. People tend to focus on that fact that the criminal called themselves a furry and not paying attention to the hordes of furries who don't want them in the community. Aside from that, we're very welcoming to people of all races, sexualities, genders, and it's easy to participate in the fandom on all levels. Children and adults can enjoy the fandom for free, and there's stuff for both of them. Like all communities, there is an adult aspect to it, and unfortunately that has become conflated and inseparable with the community as a whole. Furry as a fandom isn't about sexual content, but we don't shy away from it or hide it. Some people are into it, and some people aren't, and they're both equally furries. That's how it is in all fandoms. All fandoms have like some kind of sexual aspect to it. Like even people who like building train sets and stuff like that, there's definitely some dudes who are a little too into the trains. Furry participation actually primarily encompasses a wide variety of media appreciation. Like people who like Digimon and Pokemon blend into the furry fandom pretty seamlessly. The collectible nature of those franchises mixed with the personification and application of personalities to these creatures is what the fandom is about. Those communities are also naturally drawn to creating OCs, which are honorary fursonas. My Little Pony and Brony culture also has a strong furry connection, along with warrior cats and other similar media. Lots of media depicts animals with human traits all the way back to Aesop's fables. There's just something so whimsical and fun about a creature who replicates our lives. Humans love humans and seeing human traits, but humans love animals and pets too. So humans like to reflect a bit of themselves and their personality onto the animals that they see around them in their day-to-day life. So I feel like if you like animals at all, you're more of a furry than you might think you are. The creation of OCs, or original characters, is integral to the furry experience, almost as much as media consumption is. Original characters eventually led to people making entire fantasy species of animals that people can use to make their own OCs or fursonas. These are called original species. Even if you're not a furry, you might have encountered one of these species before, such as protogens. Protogen are so popular that some within the community consider themselves separate from furries, but I think they're mostly scared of the public perception of furries and try to avoid it for that reason. They don't wish to be conflated with something that is viewed negatively. They're cowards. Let's get into how I'm going to rate these things. I'll be rating it on ease, which is how easy it is to get into the fandom and become a full participant. Scalability is how the fandom treats you from the point that you're new to being a veteran, you know, the end game. Perception, which is how the public perceives this community. Community, which is the community itself. And uniqueness, how much stuff in the fandom can only be experienced within that fandom. For ease, I've said that to me, the only thing you need to do to be a furry is appreciate furry media and identify as a furry. So literally anyone can be a furry. It doesn't get much easier than that. The cost of it is low too, making it easy to appreciate, and you don't need to be particularly skilled at anything to appreciate it. You only need to know how to use the internet. That's an easy 5 out of 5. But this rating can change depending on how you define the minimum for being a furry. If you require a fursona, I call it a 4 out of 5 because you need at least $50 to get, you know, a fursona drawn by someone. If you have to have a fursuit to feel like a true furry, then for you may consider it a 1 out of 5. Scalability. There is stuff to do at all levels of the fandom, in all levels of interest. If you're new, you can join a Discord and talk to people about the fandom and your favorite furry media. You can make friends immediately, and you can find people to play furry games with you, like Gunfire Reborn. You can make an OC, draw, commission artists to make you stuff, binge watch furry YouTube or streamers. As someone who has been in this fandom a long time, there's plenty to do at this level too, and it's mostly more of the same. There isn't really an end game to being a furry. 4 out of 5 because what you do as a new member of the fandom is essentially the same as a longtime member. We really need to, you know, patch in an end game here. Perception. There are two kinds of people. Those who love furries and get excited when they see fursuiters and take pictures with them, or people who despise furries and want them eradicated. There is no in between unless they've never heard of a furry. You're either viewed as a pervert and need to be lit on fire or hunted alive, or you're weird and you just have some very interesting out there hobbies. Being a furry means you'll have to deal with some haters to some extent. Just existing is often enough reason for people to harass you. Becoming a furry is not for the faint of heart or for the thin-skinned, despite how many thin-skinned furries there are. 2 out of 5 for me because I have gotten digital stalkers before just by being a semi-known known furry community. The furry community as a whole is a coin flip, and it comes from the overlap of the variety of participants and backgrounds. A lot of furries tend to be leftists, so they can be cool. There are conservatives and Christian furries as well. I don't have an issue with Christian furries, but, you know, Christianity kinda is hard to separate from conservatism. Some furries are a little too comfortable with strangers and would tell you things that you couldn't torture out of me. There is a strong LGBT presence in the fandom. Unfortunately, there is a strong infighting culture and queer communities online, and that gets brought into the fandom. There can also be clique-like behavior in cool kids groups, and there's a lot of socially awkward people. But I think the majority mean well, even if many can be very self-centered. Eventually, all of them realize when they're older that the world doesn't revolve around them and their tastes, and will all start to mellow out and get along a lot better. Pretty much every nice thing that you can say about the community has a negative that follows it up, a nice little bitter aftertaste. So honestly, your experience is going to vary based on your friend group. But hey, we rock at charity and fundraising. 3 out of 5. Uniqueness. The furry fandom doesn't have much uniqueness to it because a lot of what they do is being spread out and given to other communities. The only thing really unique to us is fursuiting, but you could call that an offshoot of cosplay. Everything furries do is being adopted or co-opted in some way by other communities because furries are interested in all sorts of things aside from the fandom. So we give it to the other groups that we're in. So we sink our claws in and we corrupt those other communities, for lack of a better word. Mostly, it's our generalized vibe and whole picture that's what makes us unique. 3 out of 5. That means that, in total, the fandom is 3.4 out of 5. It sounds bad, but it's not that bad. That's really close to a 7 out of 10, which I would call a pretty good game still. I enjoy being a part of the furry fandom, but at times people in and out of the fandom make it difficult for me to associate myself with the fandom at large. Thanks for watching. If you like this idea, please let me know what you want to see next. I was thinking I'd review my other hobbies like gaming, tabletops, board games, retro gaming, and stuff like that. I have a lot of hobbies that a poor person shouldn't have. If you want to support me and get your name in the credits, then consider being a patron or member. Both cost as little as $1, and that's worth more than if you watch 100 of my videos back to back with your ad blocker off. Also, by being a patron, member, and supporter in general, I get to say no to a lot more sponsors, and their reactions to being told no can be pretty funny. You can also get merch like my USB-C dust plugs and keychains on bit.ly/SeraProtoShop, or shirts and stickers and stuff on bit.ly/Sera's store. Not Sera's store, that's what it looks like. Thanks to all of you for supporting the channel, and special thanks to the patrons and members like Nomath, Taito Phoenix, Aspirant Artist, Paper, Faye Penguin, Momentary Unicorn, Aurora the Puppy Moth, Sly, Nat, Marius Yini, Wormstar, Braskver, Beef, Sly Again, Colorado Blue, Vaderson, Linky, Splackjack, Willie P, Baxter Rabbit, and Malding Brick, and I'll see you all later. I have to go bug bomb my home. Furries keep bringing in fleas.